Hi, I'm Charlie, and this is Stereo Hysteria. Our July artists of the month, Shoes, are a band from Zion, Illinois, whose 40-year career has proven them to be true DIY pop pioneers. The peerless songwriting and vocal prowess of Jeff Murphy, John Murphy, and Gary Klebe has remained a constant as the band has evolved from home-recorded and home-pressed releases to a trio of late 70s, early 80s records on Elektra, and back to distributing themselves and others on their label Black Vinyl Records. I recently spoke with Jeff Murphy over the phone in a wide-ranging conversation that we'll be hearing over the next 2 hours, along with classic Shoes songs, live performances, and demos from the band's 4-decade span. Right now, we're hearing a 1984 instrumental called Lickety-Split, released on a 1996 Rarities compilation called As Is, but we'll start our episode proper with this song, recorded as a single for Bomp Records in 1978, called Tomorrow Night.
Don't say goodbye, 'cause you're the one that I need. Don't say goodbye, you know you're special to me. All the time, tell me why. All the time, I can't show what I feel. Do you know what I mean? I get restless inside in the night. Why do you say, wait till tomorrow night? How can I wait until tomorrow night? Don't let it die. Just say to me that you'll try. Don't let it die. Please think it over tonight. All your love is enough. All your love is so hard to tell. Though I know you so well, if you'd show me, then I'd know for sure. How do you feel about tomorrow night? It could be real, so right tomorrow night. Don't say goodbye, 'cause you're the one that I need. Don't let it die, you know you're special to me. All your love is enough. All your love, I can't show what I feel. Do you know what I mean? I get restless inside in the night. Where will we be this time tomorrow night? Will it be me? You like tomorrow night. What will you say tomorrow night? How can I wait tomorrow night? Ooh, just a few more hours. Will it be me tomorrow night? Tomorrow night. How do you feel tomorrow night?
So you've got a podcast.
I do, yeah, called
What's the basic focus of it?
I always interview people whose music I really enjoy. Although they're kind of all over the board, my tastes come back to melodic pop music.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I am too. I like a lot of different stuff, but I always come back to the melodic rock.
Specifically power pop. So I've interviewed Steve of the Sponge Tones, Paul Collins, R. Stevie Moore, Michael Shelley, and now you.
Oh, great. Well, that's great. I mean, it's always interesting when people define music by category.
Yeah.
Like when you say power pop. There's a filmmaker out of Boston named Justin Fielding, and he's been working for the last, it's probably been a year, interviewing different people. I think he's probably going to start editing at the end of this year, maybe the early part of next year, and it's due out at some point in 2016. And he's interviewing all kinds of people. I think there's a website called the Power Pop Movie Blogspot. There's a link if you go to our website, which is Shoeswire, like Newswire, but Shoeswire.com. There's in our Shoes News section, there's a link to the trailer of the movie, and they used one of our songs in the trailer. And what he's doing really is getting a lot of people's opinion on what defines power pop.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, it's sort of the kiss of death to be called power pop,
Mm-hmm.
because some people think it means wimpy, or it means lightweight, or it means, and the phrase was actually coined by Pete Townsend back in the 60s when he was describing The Who's new single, which I think was I Can See for Miles at the
Okay.
time. And yet very few people would put The Who in that category nowadays. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
weird. Power pop came to mean sort of that guitar hook riff, with a melodic. And, a song like Satisfaction by the Stones, under most people's literal definition, would probably qualify.
Yeah.
So it's a melodic song, it's got a great riff, it's guitar driven, it's, your 3-minute song, but yet, I don't know if anybody puts the Stones in the power pop category.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they are. The power pop category is incredibly broad.
Right.
I mean, from the Foo Fighters to AC/DC to Def Leppard to Jet to Fountains of Wayne to Fleetwood Mac. I mean, all that stuff to me falls in that category of it's rock music, it's melodic, it's got good riffs, but most bands, even the bands that are the seminal bands, like, say, the Beatles, a lot of people would say the Beatles are kind of the touchstone of power pop. They weave in and out of it. They're never in it completely all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
A song like Paperback Writer, which is maybe one of my favorite songs by the Beatles, sits squarely in what I think defines power pop.
Mm-hmm.
But yet take a song like Eleanor Rigby, which I love, and not so much. Or a song like Yesterday. It's pop, but it's not power pop.
Yeah.
A song like Tomorrow Never Knows, which may also be one of my favorite Beatles songs. And yet it's difficult to classify, and yet it's by that band, you know? And so that's what I think. It's weird when people say, are you power pop? I say, well, you define it, and I'll tell you if we're in there.
Up next, we'll hear a track from the band's last record for Elektra Records, 1982's Boomerang, which is, in my opinion, one of the all-time great power pop songs, called Curiosity.
Like a cat, she rules the nighttime, unafraid and not to strike. Like a cat that lives for danger, she's in trouble, rain or shine. In trouble, rain or shine. Curiosity confuses me. Curiosity, it generates
It seems like songs are always first and foremost rather than genre consideration.
Well, that's part of the thing with power pop is that it is about the song. When we were interviewed for the movie, Justin spent 3 days here filming us. And one of the things that came out in the definition is, he said at one point, and I laughed, he said, the jazz musician, they say that the definition of jazz is that the player has the best seat in the house. Mm. And I laughed and I said, well, that's very true. I said, I think that it's very much a look at me, and virtuosity, and they get off on doing that. But power pop is an emotional thing.
Yeah.
And they try to get the listener to identify and kind of sit in their chair. I mean, I think that's part of what defines power pop is that whole do-it-yourself ethic, which kind of sprung up after the Beatles, people like Emmett Rhodes and Todd Rundgren's Something Anything, and McCartney's first solo record. There's a certain humility to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Too much bravado and it doesn't feel like power pop anymore. And that's part of why the Stones don't fit, is because, unless they're doing a song like Angie, it's not very often that the Stones get down to that level, but yet I really love it when they do.
Yeah. Like
you said earlier about your own musical taste, ours are that way too. We love all that stuff, and yet when people classify us, they, to me, the best bands defy categorization. Like when you say, let's say a band like Fleetwood Mac is a great example, you can't really compare them to another band.
Sure. The sound of the band changed with every different lineup change.
Yeah, but I mean, the more popular, the Lindsey Buckingham produced stuff, I mean, if you listen to songs like Monday Morning and Secondhand News and Go Your Own Way, those are great power pop songs,
right?
Really, by my definition. But yet, you don't compare them to anyone. You might say somebody sounds like Fleetwood Mac, but you don't say Fleetwood Mac sounds like anybody else. Who could you compare them to? Mm-hmm. And that's what I think the best bands do, is they cut their own course. The problem with power pop is it automatically evokes memories, or at least thoughts, of the Beatles. Mm-hmm. So you're going to lose. Immediately you're going to lose, right? Because the Beatles are God. And you can't compare. Anytime you say something sounds like the Beatles or they're the next Beatles, it's the kiss of death.
Yeah.
How can you live up to that? How can that ever be duplicated in our lifetime? So I think that automatically taints it. And most people, when they hear power pop, they think of, bands with skinny ties and kind of doing the jangled guitar thing. And I guess that's part of it. But to me, unfortunately, that's kind of, I don't want to say the worst of it, but it's sort of the most trite. It's because it's so predictable. To me, the bands like Fountains of Wayne is a great example of a band that takes the genre and just bends it into all kinds of cool things. They just do really great things with it. And, Sheryl Crow, to me, a lot of her stuff is power pop.
Interesting.
Veruca Salt, Chicago band. Material Issue was a Chicago band. To me, those are power pop bands. The Ramones are a power pop band in my book. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny because they actually did bubblegum stuff when they were first getting together. Because they were sort of unabashedly a pop band. I think that it's interesting when people categorize it. Rock music just became so splintered over the years. Hard rock, soft rock, country rock, folk rock, emo rock, goth rock. I mean, there's just so many different categories that it really weakened it in a lot of ways. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more variety, of course, and there's a lot more specialized, but as a result, it's taken an audience to the Beatles, when they're on its album, they say they had 15 million households watching it. And considering there was maybe only 150 million people in the country at that point, that was an amazing thing.
Yeah.
But you can never have that again, because there are only 3 TV networks.
Right.
At the time.
It's a lot more fragmented.
Yes, there's so many more choices now.
Here's a John Murphy composition, also recorded for the 1978 bomb single, called Okay.
Okay, you were the girl I really loved. Okay, you were the girl I loved. You went okay, you went okay. Okay, maybe the night will just tonight. Okay, baby, you'll see my way. If it's okay, if it's okay.
The songwriting of the band has always been like pretty evenly distributed between you, your brother John, and Gary. One of the things that I think is really interesting about the Shoes is that it's never jarring when it goes from one songwriter to another. Do you think that's just down to having similar influences musically?
Yes, absolutely. We started out as friends, and that's always been the glue. The fact that we all came from the same school, we all hung out together. Gary and John met in high school. I was a little younger, but I always wanted to hang around with my older brother because, that's what you did. It made you cool. You're hanging out with the older kids. They shared classes together in high school. So they would talk music, and they found that they both liked a lot of the same stuff. And it really started out as this pipe dream between the two of them, just kind of joking, and it became this kind of in-joke between the two of them that there was this band, and my brother came up with the name Shoes, partly because it was simple and self-effacing, and maybe because there was two of them talking about it. Maybe, it was his little in-joke, and he liked the way it looked on paper because it was very symmetrical with an O in the center and two S's, one on each end, and he liked the look of the word. And it's not the Shoes. And people make that mistake of calling us the Shoes. Mm-hmm. We were shoes in the same way that it was wings, or sparks. And so it was just kind of shoes. That's been a weird thing for us over the years because the late 70s, there was a lot of new things in music happening. And all the bands call themselves the Pop, the Beat, the Mac, the A's, the Motels, the Reds, the Sneakers, blah, 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 blah. And so they threw us into that category, which was really jarring.
Yeah.
But our musical influence on each other, we've always been each other's influence, and we compete against each other, but at the same time we influence each other so that things do sound similar. Strangely enough, Gary's voice and my voice tend to be the hardest to tell apart.
Yeah.
I think John's voice is more distinct, distinctly different. But yet when we sing together, it creates a fourth person. Mm-hmm. It creates this kind of sound that's all of us and none of us at the same time. That's really one of those things that you can't predict, or it just happens. But for songwriting, we always wanted to try to build the band so that there was no infighting for, nobody wants to be the leader, nobody wants to be the follower. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there's this kind of checks and balances between us to keep everything equal. Obviously we make exceptions, and it's never completely that way, but there's no animosity, or one guy's driving a Cadillac, one guy's driving a Volkswagen, because there's a disparity of income. We set our publishing together into the same company that we each own equally a third of, so no matter who writes the song, it all goes into the same company. We all split the profits evenly, just to eliminate that possible rough spot. It can happen down the road when one guy's songs are creating all the money. I mean, right. It's been interesting with us because our strong suit has also been part of what has held us back, which is if you ask people that know our music or our fans, and you ask them what their favorite song are, you probably get a different answer out of everybody that you ask. Mm-hmm. And that's a great thing as a songwriter. You feel very fulfilled when so many of your songs are somebody's favorite somewhere.
Right.
But at the same time, it's made it very difficult to get a consensus when it comes time to choosing a single or a song to concentrate on and to focus on. And it really drove, when we were signed to Elektra back in the late 70s and early 80s, it drove them crazy because they couldn't make up their minds either. Everybody in the company had a different opinion. If they would poll the different offices in New York or the East Coast or England, they all had different choices. And like I said, as a songwriter, that makes you feel great.
Yeah.
That so many different people are choosing different songs. It shows there's depth. As a matter of fact, it got so weird that the first 3 singles that were released by them through Warner's all had the same B-side because they didn't want to waste any songs. They picked one song that they thought not going to be a single, and they put it on the B-side of all 3 of the singles so that they didn't waste any of the other songs on the album.
One of Elektra Records' single choices later ended up being the 24th video to be played on MTV, sandwiched between Robert Palmer and Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty. Here's that song, written by Gary Klebe, called Too Late.
Every time I see you, I wish I could believe you. Do you ever mean a thing you say? You lied, I tried to overlook your careless way of love, and when you call, I never turned you down. Too
For the Present Tense album, you taped a bunch of promo videos for 4 of the songs, and they all were shown on the first day of MTV's broadcast.
Yeah, and they still show up on VH1, and that was really an interesting time for us because when we came back from England, the record company was really jazzed, and they really thought great things were going to happen. We filmed those very quickly. We did them all in one day, and they were shot live, I guess you'd say. They were for the European market because America didn't really have a video outlet at the time. They were filmed in the fall of 1979, and 2 years later, MTV shows up, and they needed stuff to play, so here were these 4 videos in the can. So they took them and ran with them. MTV had nowhere near the exposure or the market share that they have now, or that they had at their peak, I guess you'd say.
Sure.
But it still was, they played us a lot for a long time. Unfortunately, the record company didn't believe videos were important, so they never would finance us to do any more, which was a colossal mistake on their part, because by 1982, MTV was asking us for more videos. That's really unheard of, but that's what was happening, and the record company refused to finance it. So they're too expensive. So we filmed one on our own, gave it to MTV, and they started playing it. We got a call from Elektra's legal department, and so did MTV. And they said, you can't do this, you can't play it, and they yanked it off the air, and MTV never played any of our new videos after that.
That's a shame.
Yeah, but I guess it might have saved us from a terrible fate, because you look at some of the shitty videos that were done at that time, because the technology was new, chroma key, blue screen, and green screen, whatever you call it. That was all new technology, so of course people were trying to use the newest, latest stuff, and it looked really cheesy.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some bands who put out videos in that time period that are really regretting having those 80s haircuts preserved for all eternity. Exactly.
One of the classics in bad taste of the time was Billy Squier, and there's a video of him in slow motion, and they repeat it like 3 different times where he's ripping his pink sleeveless, what they call them, wife beater T-shirts. He's tearing it off, and he cases like that ruined his career. Because that's all people could think of then when they hear the song. And that's what videos started to do. It took people's imagination and crammed it into a very literal translation of the song, instead of, when you hear a song like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and there's all these visualizations of picture yourself on a boat, a river, with tangerine trees and moonlight skies, you draw your own fantasies. And unfortunately, the videos would do these very literal translations of it. They would never live up to what your imagination had for that song. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
It just got all out of hand. It still boils down to the best thing, which is maybe why vinyl has made this resurgence. There is such a primal connection to holding that piece of plastic in your hand. It demands listener participation, because if you want to hear side 2, you're going to have to get up, walk over, spin the record over, and put that needle down. With a CD, you can stick it in a changer, and it's in there forever, and you can click whatever song you want. It's too easy. And you miss out on all the great tactile rewards of the smell of the PVC when you cut that shrink wrap open. It's just got a smell to it. You have this huge piece of artwork, you have more liner notes, and you have more information to mull over. It's a completely different experience.
Here's a track originally released on 1994's Propeller, which made its vinyl debut earlier this year on Primal Vinyl, a Shoes compilation released on Record Store Day, called Don't Do This To Me.
You've got a lot of nerve coming round. You chew me up and you spit me out. You should be proud, no one's ever seen what you did to me. Spent all my days and nights inside, kept to myself and I wondered why. You let it die, you're trying to see how strong I can be. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. You and I took a wrong turn. No, don't do it now. Get it down a lonely road. All we had left behind us.
It sounds like that's something that you were thinking about from the very beginning, like naming an album Black Vinyl Shoes.
When we first got together and started doing things, the goal was always to get that piece of plastic, to make that album.
Yeah.
That piece of vinyl was the ultimate trophy, and we always thought in terms of a body of work.
Right.
Pulling a single off, I guess, is sort of a necessary evil, even though the Beatles never really did it. The Beatles singles were never on their albums. They thought that was ripping people off. The American companies would kind of package and construe their albums the way they wanted to,
Sure.
but the Beatles didn't really do that until years later. They wrote singles for the sake of single. They knew, okay, this is going to go out now. We always approached it like everything was part of an album. To pull a song off was kind of like reading one chapter of a book.
Mm-hmm.
We would say, okay, this one starts here and it ends there. For us, psychologically, it worked best that was our motivation. Okay, we need 12 songs, or we need, whatever number. We got to the point where it felt complete. We said, okay, that's the album. And now it's weird. Every song is cherry-picked.
Mm-hmm.
You can download just one song of any album.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because of the fact that what it does is it forces you to, unfortunately, think of every song in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to think, will this stand alone as a single?
Right.
And some songs aren't written to be singles. Some of my favorite songs are the weird little ones.
Yeah.
Elvis Costello's Green Shirt off of Armed Forces.
Yeah, that's a great song.
Cool, weird little song. The Beatles, would they have done I'm So Tired? Long,
Wild
Long,
Honey
Long?
Pie.
Those songs would be dropped because it's like that's just a throwaway. But yet that's part of what makes listening to those albums so much fun.
Right.
Is because it varies so much. A lot of bands feel that pressure from the record company when you're signed to a major label that you really have to look at every song and make it as commercial as you can. And that's really bad when you start writing that way. The most fun is when you write something that just comes to you. On the last album, Ignition, one of the most fun songs that we had was Gary had his quota written for the album, and he had an extra song. Well, it wasn't really a song, it was just some chords. And he put it down to a drum machine, and he said, hey, I know I don't need another song, but give these chords to it for you guys. And both John and I were like, oh, man, that's cool. And we both had immediate reactions, and I said, plug me in. I know exactly what I want to do. Just plug me in. So I got a guitar and strapped it on. He told me what the chords were. And literally, as I'm sitting in the control room playing the guitar, we had the amp head in the control room and the amp in the next room. I'm playing my guitar. John is sitting next to me writing lyrics, and he had an idea for the lyrical content for this song, Hot Mess. And we were laughing our asses off. John, his initial words were really pretty dirty. And that was the whole thing. He was trying to make Gary and I laugh. And it was just so spontaneous. We don't usually work that way. But it drew, everybody just we got such an immediate reaction together that it was really fun. And I came home from the studio that night, I got home about 2:30 or so, and my wife said, you were still laughing when you came home. Because it was just so much fun. God, John's lyrics were just cracking us up.
From 2012's Ignition, this is Hot Mess.
She's got good motor skills when she's stuffed in a gill. So honey, say what you will. She's no stranger to pain. She sleeps in the rain 'cause she's got nothing to gain. Oh, she's a hot mess. Been trying to pin her down. Such a hot mess. She's running me making rounds. She's a hot
a lot of people said it doesn't sound like a Shoes song, and we thought,
Yeah, it's a lot more rocking.
yeah,
Kinda
more.
Stonesy.
But if you go back to our really early stuff, like maybe Bazooka, before Black Vinyl, we didn't feel that we had to adhere to any particular style because we didn't know what it was. We just wrote. And we are part of that. We are Stonesy. I mean, we love Sticky Fingers, and one of the Stones' least recognized albums, which is her Satanic Majesty's Request, is maybe one of our favorites. I mean, there's some great songs on there. 20,000 Light Years from Home, and She's a Rainbow, and, you know, I mean, that's pop stuff. But it is really amazing that the three of us are so kind of similar in our tastes and our reactions. You know, we're always trying to impress each other and to keep up. Nobody wants to lag behind. Nobody wants to write the dogs. Everybody wants to write the hits, but yet sometimes you come up with the song that started the album, even though we're in constant contact, literally daily. We just didn't have the time to record, and we were sort of perplexed with the state of the record industry, what it's become since the collapse of the independent stores in the 90s. It was frustrating. You know, I remember around 2004, we sold our studio, our commercial studio, and closed that, and sold the gear and sold the building. And it was really sad because, in one hand, it was, you know, closing the clubhouse.
Yeah,
you know?
end of an era.
Yeah, that was our gathering point. That was our focal point. It was a great sound and control room. I mean, really, I loved the sound of that room, and we were able to do some really great records there, not only, you know, our own stuff, but, I mean, other bands that came through. I just really liked the sound of that room. But when we sold it in 2004, it was at the end of the era, and I remember we sat down when we came back from doing the sale of the building. We went to dinner together, and we were saying, you know, if we had a brand new album finished in our hand right now, I don't know what we'd do with it. You know, how do you get it out there? How do you? Then we hooked up with CD Baby, and now they started doing downloads that you could do through CD Baby. And so, oh, this is kind of interesting. You can record something today and post it tonight. It's a lot more immediate. And that's a great thing, even though we've never really taken advantage of that. It's a different mindset. And it's kind of like the Wild West right now in music. Nobody really knows what the business model is going to be or should be for making money as songwriters or as a recording band. It's going back to bands are making money performing, which is odd. I mean, I should say the established bands are making money by performing. The new bands are having a hell of a time.
Being a member of a few new bands, I can say amen.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the bands that are starting out. One thing, I mean, I've been on different musical panels over the years, and one thing that I like to say is the main rule trying to make music for a living, if you're in a band or a songwriter, is that there's no rules. There's no rules. Whatever you want to do it. The people that are going to be the successes of tomorrow are the guys that think out of the box.
Yeah.
And that's what we kind of stumbled on. We had a master plan, but it wasn't the same as people perceive it to be. And what I mean by that is that because we were so focused on having a finished album, the first time we cut an album, I had a little record cutter, and we cut 4 copies on this little mono record cutter from 1950 that I had.
Like a lathe?
Yeah, a little lathe, because back in the 40s and 50s, that was their way of recording. You'd go into a record booth and sing and cut a record, and here you had a record, cut it into an amp. A friend of mine called me and said, "This at a garage sale, do you want it?" I said, yeah. So we cut these records, and then the next thing we did, one in Versailles, the drummer and I moved out of our parents' respectively house because we were, freshly out of high school, and we moved in together to have a band clubhouse, to have a place where we could set up just for the band, we could make music without being interrupted or without interrupting our parents or neighbors. The drummer at the time had been in a marching band in junior high. I was looking at his record collection, and here was an album from that marching band from junior high school. I said, how in the hell did they get this? It's not on a major label. And I started reading, and there was a pressing plant in Chicago. And I was like, oh, man, you can just hire a pressing plant to press up your own records. We didn't have a record deal, but we thought, cool, we'll just make our own records. In retrospect, we go, wow, you guys had this plan where you just we just did it out of necessity because we were so shitty that nobody was going to sign us. But we thought this will get us more respect. Everybody had a cassette tape. Here, listen to my tape. Here, listen to my tape. How many people had an album to say, here's my album?
Right.
Suddenly you're in a different league when you had a piece of plastic. So the first thing we did was John and I, sort of as a loose homage to Gary, who was going to school in France at the time, we did this thing called One of Versailles. It was to show Gary how enthused and how committed to the band we were, was a chance for us to learn the recording gear, which was still kind of new for us, and a chance to try how do we package this, we learned so much from that.
Here's a track written by John from 1975's One in Versailles called The Sun.
She believes it's hard to fall into heartbreak, but it's easy. Kind to like she's up or down. Wish I knew so I could say. She's the sun. She's the sun. Sun. I need her light. Her light. Dancing knows her way around. She don't like what she can't do. She's a child, but that's okay. I love to know her in that way. She's the sun. She's the sun. She's the sun. She makes it right. It's right. She's the sun. She's the sun. She's the sun. I need her light. Her light. Mama. Starts to turn her heart away. She wants nothing, I want it. Try to call I'm all alone, but she's gone to face some more. She's the sun. She's the sun. She's the sun. She makes me right. Me right.
By the time we did Black Vinyl Shoes, we had done enough recording. That was the 4th album's worth of material that we had recorded on our little 4-track setup. But we were pretty good at that point at being able to guess, because when you only have 4 tracks, you have to mix a bunch of things together. Unfortunately, you have to make those decisions without hearing everything that there's going to be in the song.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to make decisions. How loud should the hand claps be? How loud should the tambourine be? How loud should the backing vocals be? You have to commit to those when you're combining with the guitar and the drums on a track. And we got pretty good at being able to guess how it was going to turn out. We had our own little formulas, and we would follow them and fill in the blanks how many instruments we're going to have. So by the time we did Black Vinyl Shoes, it was pretty organized, and we thought, this is going to be our demo. This is going to be what we bought to the record companies with to get our deal. And we released it. We only did 1,000 copies, and we gave away about 300 to the press. But it proved to be a great business card. It did eventually get us our record deal. But it was never really meant to be this definitive album. But in retrospect, there is something that's captured in that kind of spontaneous, even though it was months of work. It was probably recorded from November to we mixed it in May, so it was 6 or 7 months of work. We put our nose to the grindstone to record on weekends and at night and get it done, but it was never really meant to be released on a mass scale. We knew that it had problems. We knew that the drums sounded like cardboard boxes because we only had these crappy little microphones.
Right.
But now, when you look back at it, my wife has it in her car. She's got the CD in her changer, and so if I get in her car and it comes on, it's kind of shocking how, like I said, if you take any one of those songs off of there, it doesn't make much sense. But when you take it as a whole, there is a sound, there's a feeling that you get from that whole record because of the limitations.
It's something that didn't sound like anything else that was on the radio at the time.
Yeah, what's really funny about that, and I'd completely forgotten this until we had licensed a reissue LP of that about 6 or 7 years ago to a label out of, was it Germany or Spain? I can't remember. Some European country. It was going to do a limited run of it. And they asked me to write some extended liner notes, and it dawned on me that we completely recorded the entire thing with headphones. Because we didn't have monitors, we didn't have speakers, we didn't have a room that we could listen to separately that wouldn't bleed into where we were recording. So we did the whole album on headphones. And when you listen to it in headphones, it makes a lot more sense. There was a DJ from WBCN in Boston. She was instrumental in bringing the Cars into Elektra. And she was at Elektra when we were there, and she said that she played tracks from Black Metal. She was on WBCN at the time, and she said, unfortunately, it doesn't work well on the radio, but it sounds really interesting in the headphones. She said, that's because that's the way it's recorded. So things move from left to right, or you can feel the panning of things. And with 4 channels, it's like, well, one of those channels is going to be in the middle because that's where the main vocal and the bass is going to be. So those 2 tracks, they never would record bass with the main vocal. So those 2 channels are going to be straight up in the center, and then you've got a stereo. Your other 2 channels are going to be stereo spread of drums and rhythm guitars, and then extraneous instrumentation that you're going to add along the way.
Here's a rockin' song written by Jeff from 1977's Black Vinyl Shoes called Capital Gain.
These pockets are empty, and it feels like a stream. My financial condition is not as bad as it seems. Within a knowing position, it's easy to fall. He doesn't play for percentage. He's in a winner take all. He's not more capital gain. He'll do what he has to do. He's not more capital gain. He's over a billion or two.
It's a weird record.
But I think it's really charming for that reason. it sort
Oh,
of
thanks.
looks ahead to Guided by Voices records in the 90s.
I've heard people make that comparison, and, we're incredibly proud of that record. We always were. We were at the time. We were embarrassed by the fact that I remember people that I worked with at the time, so we all had day jobs. I worked in a factory then, and I remember people saying, "It sounds like shit. It doesn't sound like anything that's on the radio."
Mm-hmm.
Because to them, they just didn't understand. The reason it sounds different is because of the way it was recorded.
Yeah.
The equipment was really crappy, but that's the way the listening public looks at things. It either sounds good or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And now the musical window of acceptability is much wider than it used to be. It's really cool, and I'm not sure exactly what made it happen.
Well, now you can buy any computer and it's got GarageBand already on it.
Yeah,
Anyone has the ability to make a record.
But what's become cool and acceptable and almost desirable is not the polished version of things,
Right.
but behind the scenes. And maybe it was when the Beatles did the anthology stuff in '95. Maybe part of it was when Pete Townsend started doing, I don't know if you're familiar with his...
The Scoops?
Scoop, yes, exactly.
Yeah, I
he
love
did
those
the Scoop
records.
series. Yes, and it's so much fun to kind of peek behind the curtain, you see, because you're a musician, too.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes it that much more interesting. Oh, that's how he did that.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes inspiring, because that's what we all are anyhow, as musicians, imitating and inspired by all these things that have been fed into us. Everything that went in front of us has influenced us. So we love it when I've got stacks and stacks and stacks of books in my office where my recording gear is, and I will bet you 99.9% of them are about the Beatles.
It's funny you say that, because my phone and recording equipment are on a stack of books, and the books are A Cellar Full of Noise, Paul McCartney Many Years From Now, I Me Mine, the Hunter Davis book. I just took books off my shelf, and they're all Beatle books.
Yeah, and part of it is, if you're going to make a band, if you're going to build a band, if you're going to be in a band, you're going to look at the best. I'll read an entire book just to learn one thing I didn't know before. That's what drives us. And that's part of what drives the whole power pop thing.
Yeah. I get the feeling a lot of the musicians are also really big fans.
Absolutely. That's the thing. You hear something that really gets you moving, and you just go, oh, man, that's so cool. I got to do something. It inspires you to work. It begs competition, but at the same time, there's such a reverence. Todd Rundgren's a great example. He gets a lot of respect from power pop guys, but really, after Something Anything, wasn't really in the power pop vein.
Mm-hmm.
But, you only have to do it once. When it's power pop. Someone like Emmett Rhodes, I'm not sure if you know who that is.
Yeah.
He's revered because of something that he did 45 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. A band like Big Star was one of the early influences on us because they were a couple years ahead of where we were. In other words, in '72, when they did number one record, Shoes was still just a joke between John and Gary.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until '73, '74 that we actually started doing recordings together and stuff like that. And that's when they did Radio City.
Right.
And that was like, whoa, shit, look at this. This is cool. We were into it first generation, as it came out as a new release. People have discovered Big Star after the fact. But for us, they were, I don't want to say contemporaries, because they were ahead of us.
And everything I've heard about Big Star in that era is that it was really hard to find their records, and they didn't tour
Yeah,
very
they
much.
weren't successful at all. It wasn't like they sold a lot of copies, but they got some really good reviews in Rolling Stone, and the alternative press, which was big at the time, magazines like the Crawdaddy or things like that. I guess you'd call them an underground band. And for us, we were tuned into that stuff. That's part of what made collecting records. There's a little bit of snobbishness to it, I guess. There's a little bit of, I know something you don't know, because you would know a band that nobody had heard of yet. And now, when people kind of, I don't want to say jump on the bandwagon, because for people that are of a different generation, people that weren't even born yet in 1972, for them to discover Big Star after the fact, I say, fantastic, that's great. But for people that weren't paying attention at the time, those are the ones that I think jump on the bandwagon. You know what I mean? Oh, I like it because it's cool. It's kind of a hipster thing. They adapt it because it's cool, but yet, at the time, they missed it because they were listening to, I don't know, Donna Summers or something.
Up next, we'll hear a demo of a track from 1979's Present Tense called Cruel You.
Baby, when you dial the telephone, I thought you were gonna call your mother.
part of you being a fan as well as a musician, you've done a lot of work getting Shoes archival releases out. I know Numero Group recently put out some of the early private pressed records. Is there plans for any more of that stuff to come out?
Well, they stopped at the demos for present tense.
Mm-hmm.
We put out a CD called Double Exposure that has both the demos for present tense and Tongue Twister.
Okay.
So those are available, but the Numero stuff was everything up to the present tense demos, and then that stopped.
Okay.
We also do have, and we've never released them, the demos for what became Boomerang.
Okay.
What's really weird in looking back at those things, when we listened to them, the Double Exposure release was kind of a fluke. I was going through my attic, and I found, when I was in England, when we were recording present tense, I had taken all these photos on slide film, because Gary said to me, slide film looks better than regular film, you know, so get slide film. And I borrowed my girlfriend's 35mm camera and took it with me to England and shot all these things on slides. And because they're on slides, we couldn't really look at them, you know, because I never had prints made. And so here were all these slides that I just never looked at. So I went through them, and I was basically documenting how we recorded the album. I was taking pictures of guitar setups and microphone placement and things that interested me as an engineer. And I thought, this might make an interesting little book, sort of behind the scenes, you know, the making of present tense. So I wrote a little book using these pictures, inspired by these pictures, and it was called Birth of a Band, the Record Deal, and the Making of Present Tense. And it kind of quick little history of how we got signed and recording that record associated with those pictures. And amongst those pictures, and I remember taking this photo out in L.A. with a photographer. We said, let's do one that's double exposed. So let's try and see what it looks like. So when I see that, that one jumps out at you because you could see very easily something's weird about this. And when I was closer, it was this double exposed picture. We decided not to use it at the time because our drummer, Skip, you almost can't see him down at the corner, which coincidentally, I mean, ironically, you know, he quit the band in '84. So as we've carried on since that, the last, 30 plus years have been without him. So I thought, well, what if we released those demos, take a second look and use this photo and call it double exposure? It's like a second look at this. So I asked John and Gary what they thought, and they said, yeah, let's do it. And when we got those demos out and we listened to them, we found a lot of things that we liked from the demo better than the finished version, you know?
Sometimes it's hard to capture the feel, the initial inspiration.
One thing that I've always said, even dating back then, it was very frustrating to us. People would call it demoitis. You know, you do something on a demo, and then you find yourself chasing your tail trying to get that same feel. And I always say that the first time you do something, it's inspiration. And the second time you try to recapture it, it's imitation. You're trying to imitate yourself. You're listening to this tape over and over and say, what did I play? How did I get the guitar sound? What was, you know what I mean? There's something about that original demo that captures that magic, which is what drives you to finish it, to make it a complete song. So it's interesting to see those demos because even though the recording techniques were, by that time we were doing 8-track stuff, but they're still limited and shitty, but they sounded surprisingly good. So by the time we did the third album for Elektra, you know, we were getting fairly good at using the 8-track. We did the whole album and then some extra songs. We probably did 15 or 18 songs for Boomerang. But after that, we built our own studio. So in a way to sort of combat demoitis, when you have your own studio, the demo becomes the master. You start building a song, and you just build it to the point that it's a finished song. There aren't as many demos anymore.
From the band's first album to be recorded at their studio, Short Order Recorder, 1984 Silhouette, here's a song written by Gary called Running Wild.
Panic swept me like a storm as a good thing came to an end. The sudden backlash shook me cold. The sharp wave rattled my head. Followed all my instincts and they led me to your door. Oh, you settled all my hunger. Something changed and now I'm running wild. Looking for
Ken Sharp was writing his book. He did a chapter on shoes, and he called and he said, "Do you have original handwritten lyric sheets from the time for any of that stuff?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I saved everything. I've got notes. I amazed myself at what I had in my paddock when I started really digging." That's one of the things that's gone away with computers. Now everybody types their lyrics into the computer, and if they don't like it, they delete it. Or they cut and paste. Like what we would do is, we'd write it down on whatever sheet of paper was laying around. That's why you'd have the lyrics on napkins or hotel letterhead or whatever.
Receipts.
And then if you'd write a verse, then you go, "Oh, I don't think that should be the first verse. Maybe that should be the third verse." You put an arrow down, and you'd say, "Okay, this is going to be the third verse," and then you'd have some notes on the side, and you'd scribble all these notes to yourself to remember. That's the interesting. Now you're seeing the working progress. But now the computer has made it so that people don't get to see that. You don't document that anymore. Now, you type your lyrics, you shift them around, you cut and paste them so that the first verse becomes the third verse simply by clicking and moving it. Again, it's interesting to me when I hear George Harrison's demo of "While My Guitar Gently Weeps," and you hear a whole new verse that you didn't even know existed. That to me is magic. That's just, oh, man, it's beautiful. That's the kind of the sad part about it. Computers give you great convenience and they allow us to do a lot of really cool things, but they have also taken some of those cool things away. So it's a weird trade-off.
A couple years ago, you released Ignition, which was like the first album of original material in almost 2 decades. I was actually listening to it earlier today, and it definitely lives up to the high standards of the first couple albums.
Oh, thank you.
What took so long, and will we have to wait another 18 years for a new Shoes album?
Yeah, I sure hope not. I guess part of it is, like I said, once we sold the studio in 2004, even though we hadn't recorded any new songs in 10 years, I had started my solo album right before we sold the studio. So I had the beginnings of like 3 songs from that gear. And then I bought a digital setup for my house. I transferred those into the digital realm. And then I finished that and put that out in 2007. And part of it was to kind of prove that I could do it. Part of it was because I always liked that self-produced Emmett Rhodes Todd Rundgren ethic where the guy does everything. You really get inside a guy's head when you listen to things that are done that way, and that's McCartney's first album.
Right.
I always thought it was cool, so I thought, let's do this. Part of it was to test out the gear that I had now, which was digital. Part of it was to nudge John and Gary, say, look how easy this can be. And that inspired us to try a Cheap Trick song that we were asked to do for a tribute album that the company never got off the ground, but that doesn't matter to us. The fact is we finished the Cheap Trick song for the tribute, and then we just used it ourselves. It was released in Japan, and when we went over there to do a tour, we did If You Want My Love, You Got It.
If you want
And that was a good shakedown experience. That was in 2007 we recorded that. Part of it was done at my house on my gear. Part of it was done at Gary's house on his gear. And the fact that we could get the two to speak to each other, you could transfer files back and forth without losing quality. Digital's got some cool things, you know. And I could sit in my robe with a cup of coffee in the morning, listen to a mix with one finger, touch a fader and change the moves, and then say, oh, that's cool, save it. Before, if you wanted to remix a song, it was a huge ordeal. I can remember when we did Tongue Twister, we mixed at the Village Recorder in Studio D, which is the room that they built for Fleetwood Mac to do Tusk.
Okay. And you were using the same producer, right?
Yes, Richard Dashit. The reason we got it was he quit the Tusk tour.
Okay.
He was burnt out from being on the road. He wanted to do stuff close to home so he could sleep in his own bed. We went to the whiskey one night, and I recognized him in the corner and went over and talked to him, and he invited us out to his house, and we ended up working together. And we would spend a full 14-hour day, and sometimes it would extend to the next day, mixing one song. So if you listen to it a week later, you just go, oh, shit, I wish the vocal was louder. There's nothing you could do.
Right.
Unless you wanted to start the process all over again. So if you had to go back and remix a song, it was a major expense and a major undertaking. So digital really changed all that, which makes it easier for us to work. What got us going on Ignition, like I said, we were in contact. We were doing things. We did some live shows in 2007 then, after we did Double Exposure. Al Chan from the Rubinoos sent an email saying, tell Jeff that those guys should go to Japan because they'd really dig it over there and they'd really love it. And so he gave me the information. I contacted them, and we said, yeah, let's go to Japan. I mean, they'll pay for the whole thing. How often do you get that chance? So we did that in 2009. So it wasn't like we were not talking. It wasn't like we weren't working. It's just that we weren't recording. We weren't writing new material and recording. We were doing things. And then in January 2010, a good friend of mine and my wife was suddenly stricken with this really unknown disease and died very quickly and very weirdly. And it was this really horrific disease and very traumatic. And I wrote this little lament about it because his wife, Widow, who was a good friend of ours, told me these stories, which just really were heartbreaking, about how bad she missed him. And she would say things like, I call his work phone. He had a private work phone. And she said, I call his work phone because they haven't erased his message yet. And I can still hear his voice, his answering machine. And she said, I would take towels and his work jacket and roll up a towel and put it in the arm of his work jacket and take it to bed with me and wrap it around me so I could smell him and feel it. And that really moved me. You know, I just thought, God, I mean, how primal, how deep is that relationship, you know, after he's gone, that she has this yearning. So it inspired me to write this little lament, and I called it Out of Round. And I played it for John, and John said, you know, it's cool, you should really put drums to it and make it a real song. Because mine was just, the instrumentation was there, but there were no drums, and I didn't know how to do drums without destroying the mood of it. So I burned a copy on CD and gave it to John, gave it to Gary. And unbeknownst to me and John, Gary had built a really great studio in his house. He said, hey, you want to come over and see my new studio? And we're like, what? Yeah, sure, cool. And, man, you know, he got some great gear, just great stuff. Again, unbeknownst to me, John and Gary set to work on that song that I gave them, and they rocked it, you know. They put a drum track to it that kind of did this double-time thing in the chorus. John put down a bass line. Gary did this guitar solo thing. And they called me, do you want to hear this? I said, sure. So I went over and listened to it. I know that everybody was nervous. I was afraid what they had done to the song. They were afraid I was going to react negatively. And I was just jazzed. I mean, I thought it sounded great. And I brought it home and played it for my wife, and she cried. She was so upset. She said, you've changed it. You know, I really loved the fact that... And I said, yeah, but that's what songs do.
Yeah.
You know, that's the fun of being in a band. And then it goes through this metamorphosis, and it becomes something completely different. And it's the death of my friend inspired not only the song, but is the first track that inspired us to do a whole new album. That's, to me, a really inspiring thing. Yeah. So from that track, we just kept working, and that's what became Ignition. So out of this tragedy was born a life in us, a new life for us to keep going.
Since you went away, sadness every day in my heart. Your message on our phone, leave your number, we're not home, still remains. So I can hear your voice. Life goes on, but the world seems out of round to me. People say you'll get over it one day, but now it's so hard to see. Nothing stays the same. Every life is full of change till it's gone. Everything I do feels so different without you, but I know I'll survive this pain. Life goes on, but the world seems out of round somehow. People say you'll get over it one day, but now you don't see a way. Life goes on, seems that the world seems out of round. People say you'll get over it one day. You don't see a way, 'cause the world is out of round.
Mary Donnelly was writing the bio during that time. She spent like 4 years writing and investigating and researching our history. So she wrote this book that she put out called Boys Don't Lie, A History of Shoes.
Okay.
And she interviews record company people, she interviews radio people, she interviews agents and managers and roadies and all kinds of people that we worked with over the years. And she documents what we went through. She did it because she was a fan, and she did it to show that we are survivors, that we survived the move from singles to albums to cassettes to 8-tracks to CDs to mini discs, downloads.
And then back to vinyl.
And then back to vinyl. And she didn't know we were recording. She was kind of upset that we didn't tell her we were recording. John summed it up best when he said, when a woman is pregnant, oftentimes the couple won't announce it until they're past the first trimester. With shoes, it was kind of that too. We've always been sort of masters of not selling ourselves. We're not very great at promoting ourselves. When people say, how is it? I know there are some bands that will say, oh, it's great. It's the greatest thing we've ever done. That's not our style. For us, we like it. We had fun doing it. I hope you like it. So the same thing with the announcement of this album. We were excited and we hope people loved it as much as we did, but people give a shit. It's been so long. I mean, we're well past the age that people get excited about a new band. And yet, to me, music is, or should be, about the music. And that's part of what's been ruined by shows like The Voice or American Idol. It's a visual presentation now. That's the problem now. It ain't about the music. You have to have the looks, you have to be an actor, you have to be a performer, you have to be a songwriter, you have to be a musician. And that takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
It's like telling Picasso, you're too ugly. Or saying to him, now can you jump around or something while you're painting, make it more interesting to watch? You know, or do somersaults, or light your hair on fire, or do something. Because that's what the marketing people want. That's what the record companies want. It's like suddenly the qualification for writing good songs is based on something that has nothing to do with music anymore. And that's why the internet and the underground, and I love it when people discover things that are off the beaten track.
Here's a three-way collaboration between John, Jeff, and Gary from 2012's Ignition called Say It Like You Mean It.
Rolling off your tongue, passing through your lips. Words are only words. Without some feeling, they can't be heard. You gotta say it like you mean it, 'cause I can tell by the tone in your voice. If you want me to believe it, you gotta say it like you mean it. Racing through your head, carefully you choose the words sent to my ears. They're so empty and insincere. Wanna hear loud and clear. Wanna hear loud and clear. You gotta say it like you mean it, 'cause I can tell by the tone in your voice. If you want me to believe it, you gotta say it like you mean it. Say it like you mean it, in a way you have before. A lot has come between us. Speak up to save us, or the rest will take us down. Rolling off your tongue, passing through your lips. Words are only words. Without some feeling, they can't be heard. Wanna hear loud and clear. You gotta say it like you mean it, 'cause I can tell by the tone in your voice. If you want me to believe it, you gotta say it like you mean it. You gotta say it like you mean it. Words are only words. You gotta say it like you mean it. Words are only words.
I love the fact that Dave Grohl, maybe more than anyone's making rock music or power pop or whatever you want to call it, champions that whole ideal of it's about a guy sitting with a guitar or a keyboard in his bedroom or in his garage with his pals in front of a microphone making music. That's what it's about. I like the fact that he's self-effacing. I like the fact that he recorded that album on analog tape, on 2-inch tape. I mean, that's sort of a Black Vinyl Shoes mentality, intentional. With us, we had to work with those limitations. With him, he chose to go back to that limitation of working on analog tape because of the sound of it, but also because it forced him into a discipline. I mean, at one point, Butch Vig, who produced it, was a friend of ours. Butch is a friend of ours from, we used to produce Butch's band.
Oh, okay.
Butch was in a band from Wisconsin, from Madison, called Spooner.
Okay.
One of the other bandmates was Doug Erickson, who was cousins with one of our high school buddies. So we knew him from that. And when they started going in the studio and trying to record things, they did some EPs back in the mid-'70s, they asked us if we would come in and kind of co-produce and sort of, because we had more studio experience than they did. So we did, and we developed a friendship, and we would help them. And Gary, being an architect, we sort of helped contribute to the design of their early studio.
Okay.
And it looked a lot like a smaller version of our first room because we had extra building materials, so we sold it to them. And so their room was the same color and made of the same material, the same cloth on the walls, because it was left over from our studio. Butch would always call and say, "Hey, can I come in and listen in your room? I want to hear what these mixes sound in a different environment." He said, "Sure." So we'd come down and listen. And he calls up one day, this is probably around 1990, and I was in the studio with Material Issue, and Butch called and he said, "Hey, you know, when you did your deal with Hologram for Material Issue, how did you structure that deal? Because I'm working with this band," and he said, "it's for an indie label, and I've taken it in advance, but it's supposed to be picked up by a major label, so I'd like to get a percentage on the record, and how can I construct that deal?" And I said, "Well, let me give you my lawyer's number." I said, "He'll go in, he'll do the deal for you. He won't dick you around. You already got the pieces in place. He'll just negotiate the deal." And the fucking album was Nevermind by Nirvana. And it sold 13 million copies, I think. It was in America. It sold 30 million worldwide or something. The first time I heard Nirvana, I was really excited. And I said to John and Gary, sounds like we produce the drums, the panning, particularly the sound of the toms on that record. I said, God, it sounds like something we do. Then I found out it was Butch. And I said, it makes sense. And Butch sent us a picture, because then he went on to do Garbage.
Okay.
Butch sent us an 8x10 glossy of Garbage, and all the guys signed it, Doug and Shirley and Steve. And Butch signed it, and it says, "You bastards, you turned me into a studio rat." And that's because that's what we are. We're studio rats. We just love the environment. I love being in the studio. There used to be a smell from the oxide, from the tape. There was a distinctive smell to analog tape. And when you walked into the control room, it became part of the whole scene. It's like walking into a place where they burn incense all the time. That aroma ties itself to that room. So did the smell of analog tape. The same way that they were saying PVC has a definite odor. It attacks you on more than one sense at a time.
Up next, we'll hear a track from Present Tense called Every Girl.
Why should you be different? Why should you break form? Every girl I've ever had has treated me so wrong. I just want to find a girl to take me as I am. Every girl I've ever had could never understand. It doesn't matter anyway, I'm used to the pain. There's really nothing left to say, I'm used to the pain. Someone tell me what I need to try and help me see why every girl I've ever had has put the blame on me. Will I ever find one to hold me in the night? Every girl I've ever had tells me I'm not their type. I know that I don't make it easier on you, but when I can't forget it, it's all that I can do. It doesn't matter anyway, I'm used to the pain. There's really nothing left to say, I'm used to the pain. Why should you be different? Why should you break form? Every girl I've ever had, every girl I've ever had, every girl, every
When we were in L.A. at one point, just prior to getting signed, we were getting kind of overwhelmed. You know, we were 4 kids from Illinois that had never been on a plane before, and here we're in Hollywood, and everybody was throwing offers at us, and it was getting a little overwhelming. And the vice president of Electric called and said, "Hey, you guys want to go in the studio?" He said, okay. At that point, we weren't signed. Looking back again, it was just the days of record company access where they had so much money.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of booking us into a little studio, they booked us into the Village Recorder. Where all these great albums, Supertramp was doing Breakfast in America, to do demos, just to screw around one day. And they rented a bunch of gear, and the gear went crazy. We were doing 2 songs. We were doing 2 demos. One of them was Every Girl, which was on present tense, and the other was Now and Then. We put the tape, we were working on Every Girl, and we hit rewind, and the tape machine went crazy. The reel on one side shut off, and on the other side it didn't. And it just started shooting tape all over the place, just crickled the shit out of it, ruined the master tape. That's kind of stuff, that's analog. And when we went back 2 years later to mix Tongue Twister, they were talking about this really catastrophic session where all these things blew up and went bad, and we said that was us. That session, they had like 2 Pultec equalizers go bad, and the tape machine lost its mind and ate the tape. We said that was us. That was our session. We were there with Dick Malloy.
That's a good thing that it happened on the demo.
Yes, it was on the demo and not on the master. But yet, that's the kind of thing that the Beatles would find some weird circumstance like that, and they would say, well, so we cut the tape up and we used parts of it, and that's what you hear in Tomorrow Never Knows. Or, something like that. They would take something that was serendipitous like that, and that was their genius. And maybe it was just instinct. They just would run with it and somehow make it work. And
making the mistakes sound intentional.
Yeah, and that's the fun of it. You listen back to a song like Paperback Writer, and to this day, I listen to that and I go, is that a tambourine or a typewriter doing that little percussive?
Right. It fits in thematically with the song.
Yes, exactly. That's why I thought they were clever enough to do that stuff. But whether or not they did, I don't know. That's the fun of listening to those. What do they call them? Easter eggs. Where you find these things hidden in a song, and then you got to try to open it up and see what is it. I loved that. I still find so much influence from those records. I just go back over and over and over and just marvel at the breadth of those recordings. And that's what we try to do when we record, too. We try to weave the songs together. Rather than just slap them down on tape, we really think a lot. And I guess people have said to us, you should try to just work instinctively sometimes and see what happens, what comes of it. But there's something in our DNA that makes us strive to make it sonically the best we can make it at the time.
Right.
It's hard to let go. As a musician, you probably know that too. It's hard to say, okay, it's done. That's finished. John used to say, I wish there was a little red light that would go on to let you know, okay, you're done. Like a pizza timer, on an oven.
Do you think that's because you started as a recording band rather than as a live band? Yeah,
and part of it is our insecurities as a band, as players. And we still don't know shit about music. It's completely instinctive for us. Everything that we do, none of us knows how to read or write music, so everything is by memory, or you record something to remember it, and then you play it back later, and then you work on it, and then you build it from there.
Here's the lead-off track from 1981's Tongue Twister, another John, Jeff, and Gary co-written song called Your Imagination.
Up all night again, for the last time. Put up your fight again, you're the same line. Feeling weak inside, in a bad way. One more lie to hide, they all seem to sound the same. Don't be angry, don't be cold. Can you hear me?
John just sent me an email. He said he was with some friends and he went somewhere and they handed him a bass and they said, "Hey, let's jam." And John said, we never jam. We're not a jam band. So for us to just, I have no idea. If somebody says to me it's in the key of C, it's 1-4-5 and the 12-bar blues or what, I don't know what any of that means. Play a little bit of it for me. And okay, now I got you. Now I know what you mean. But I don't know. And so that's the way. I've learned a lot more just by working with other bands over the years in the studio. When I was producing other bands, I would pick up the lingo and to be able to communicate with them more efficiently, I would learn, okay, that's what you're talking about. Okay, so that's 6/8 time.
Right.
Things like that. But I think that's part of what makes it fresh for us.
Yeah.
Is the fact that we do step away from it. Like since we did our last show, it's been almost a year since we were on stage. And that's part of taking that break, walking away from it musically for a while just to clear your head is part of what makes it fresh.
Yeah.
Because then you're excited when you get back to it. It's fun again. When we got together to record Ignition, man, it felt great. We realized how much we love it. You forget it because you get busy in life doing other things and it gets pushed off to the back burner. But when the three of you are in that room, you just realize how much you love it, how much you love creating something out of nothing. There's nothing as gratifying as seeing a song go from this idea in your head to this finished piece of work. And it's still nothing more than an idea. It's still an intangible. I can't hand it to you. I can't put it in a box. I can make a copy of it. I can make a sonic duplicate of it, give it to you on a medium. But effectively, I could play it for you over the phone. And if I'm good at it, it's stuck in your head. And nothing physically has transpired between us. That's really a cool thing about music, the fact that you can stick something into somebody's head, maybe forever, without ever meeting them or touching them or being in the same room. That's what music did for us, which was, again, what kind of inspired us was when we looked at our own record collections, when we were forming the band and trying to figure out what we wanted to do, coupled with our own insecurity as musicians and insecurity of playing and shyness of being in front of people on stage, the fact is 99% of the records and CDs and music that I own, I've never seen the band live.
Yeah.
Maybe I would go to see the band after I heard the songs off the record. But I can only think of one example of a band that I became a fan from them live, and then I bought their records. And I'm still a fan of both the records and the live for this Cheap Trick. Because they were in the clubs about the same time we were.
Yeah, because they were from Rockford.
Yes, they were a little ahead of us time-wise. They're way ahead of us musically, but, we weren't out playing shows yet, and they were. Probably 2 years before we did our first show, they were already out doing shows. Yet they were still a huge influence on us because we could go see them almost then. Back then, you could go out almost any night of the week to a club and see a great band play. It was an embarrassment of riches. There were so many clubs. There was so much happening on the music scene. Literally, on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, you could go out and see Cheap Trick somewhere between Milwaukee and Indiana playing, in some club. That's all gone. But, man, it was great. It was so exciting. There was so much happening. And we wrote a lot of the stuff from present tense sort of in reaction to that.
Okay.
Songs like In My Arms Again was a direct effort to write something that we could play live on stage, even though, honestly, it's fairly difficult for us to get through. But we wanted something that had that same, or Hanging Around With You was very Cheap Trick influence.
Okay.
And something that I could just envision in the hot, smoky, sweaty club where it's dark, but yet the stage lights are bright. And, they would start this song kind of simmering like Speak Now or something like that. They would start out, and the club would just be electric. You just feel the energy and the anticipation that it was going to release at some point. That's what Hanging Around With You was an effort to kind of cop that feel and that attitude.
From the live EP, Shoes on Ice, recorded at a 1981 hometown gig at the Zion Ice Arena, this is Hanging Around.
You haven't surely a thing that I need. Sorry to say that I'm off of my knees. I'm gonna mind it. I'm gonna let you down. It sounds reason.
it was our insecurities made us, even to this day, we tend to really polish something so that people can't say, man, you guys are such shitty players.
I mean, you say that, but the live recordings you've released, like Shoes on Ice and later the Fred Buzz album, those sound great to me. The vocal
thanks.
harmonies are really tight, and the instrumental playing, it doesn't sound like there's something missing.
Oh, well, great. I mean, I guess the thing is, what happens then is you become a cover band for your own music.
Right.
Because there might be 5 different guitar parts playing. And then when you go out live, you have to, okay, what are the 2 important ones? What are the 2 main ones that we can play? You have to hone it down and somehow homogenize a guitar part to play that encapsulates those 5 different guitars. So, although I was listening to something by Led Zeppelin, because, they're known as, Led Zeppelin, they're such a rock band, but their records are very crafted.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page was great. He was very sloppy, and that's kind of what's attractive about those things, is that he might have a half a dozen completely different guitar parts going on in the same song. And yet he knows when he gets on stage, he's the only guitar player. So somehow he has to do the same thing. He has to chop and edit and homogenize all 6 of those guitar lines into one cohesive guitar part that he can play live.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, he's an emotional player. He's sloppy, but he's emotional. And, man, I'll take that any day over precision.
Right.
We're neither. I guess we would be more emotional than technical. We're not technical at all.
Okay.
But yet, if we hear something we like, we just practice that part until we can do it. And that's what Shoes shows are. It's memory. You won't see extended jams because we don't know how to do that. We don't think in those terms. For us, it's a different approach. Some bands think, it's live, I got to do something flashier.
Right.
For us, it's like, no, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to play my song.
Well, do you have any plans to do any more live shows?
We just last week passed on an offer that we had to play out in L.A., or actually in Hollywood, kind of postponing it more than passing on it, because it was proposed to be the second week in October. Yeah, I've got a pinched nerve in my back right now that I'm trying to, and then unfortunately it's on the shoulder that you would have a guitar strap thing.
Right.
And everybody's kind of in a weird business mode right now where we have commitments that we have to do things that it would not be easy to tear away and get into rehearsals and coordinate with our drummer, who's out a lot playing with other people.
Okay.
So we just passed on that. But I mean, really, for us, live shows are very opportunistic. Like I said, the Japan thing. Somebody calls up and says, hey, you guys want to go to Japan? Mm-hmm. Say, okay, what do you think? And they'll say, well, here's what we'll do, and here's the money, and, if we can make it feasible, if it sounds fun, yeah, let's do that. We don't do things now with the disillusion, I'm going to be a rock star. I mean, those days are gone for everybody. At this age, we're not going to get many panties thrown on stage. But you do things because it's fun, or you just pure love it. And just for the uniqueness of, you say, well, crap, how many times do you get to go to Japan and have all your expenses paid and make money and play in front of people that want to hear your music? I mean, it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah. From Fred Buzz, an album recorded live at the Double Door in Chicago on New Year's Eve 1994, here's a killer version of Your Devotion.
A spoken word to know just what I like. Only you unlock my door. I let you walk inside. You don't understand what you do, but you've done it before, and you'll do it again and again. I only want your devotion. side. I'll give to you the only thing that keeps you satisfied. You don't understand what you do, but you've done it before and you do it again and again. Again. I only want your devotion. Will you show some emotion? I only want your devotion. Will you give your devotion? I only want your devotion. Will you show some emotion? I only want your devotion. Will you give your devotion?
In reading this Ken Sharp's book, I was really saddened and surprised by how many of these bands are really bitter. Because they lost out, or the record company screwed them, or they were so close to huge success and then it slipped away from them. Like the Raspberries is a good example.
Yeah, or Badfinger, or Big Star, or Emmett Rhodes. They all have bad
Exactly.
luck.
And when I saw the Big Star movie, what is it, Nothing Can Hurt Me?
Yeah.
I really came away from it a little disappointed in the fact that it really seemed like the story of every band,
Yeah.
because it was like they had the brass ring and then they didn't have the brass ring. There is something endearing about their songs, but yet it's so common to go through that record company, and that's ultimately what I think really hurt us as a band at the time. We were able to recover from it. But after we finished Present Tense and we came back from England, we sat down with the executives from Elektra and the chairman of the board from Warner Brothers, and they were so jazzed about the album. They said, we expect this album to sell between 3 and 4 million copies. And that was the kiss of death, because now you've set a bar.
Yeah.
It's really fucking high. I mean, who sells 3 to 4 million copies? It's really, really, really an elite club, and everything has to go right for that type of thing to happen. And if it doesn't, and it didn't, go right, and you don't reach that pinnacle, then you're a failure, you're a disappointment, and the label loses interest in you because the fact that, oh, shit, we thought those guys were going to be megastars. Labels are very opportunistic. They're very, what have you done for me lately?
Right.
And I guess I understand that, but art doesn't work that way.
For a long time, you had Black Vinyl Records. Did you take any of the lessons that you learned being on a major label to being a label head?
Oh, yeah. That's part of the problem when we were doing Black Vinyl, and we still release things on that moniker. That's still our label to release things on. But when we were signing bands back in the early and mid-'90s, that's when the CD boom was happening. Independent record stores and record chains were doing great with CD releases as people were getting into the new technology. So you were, pretty good standing to have a flow of new albums coming out. So we started signing bands thinking, well, this will help them. It helps us kind of push things through the pipeline. It makes it easier to keep the cash flow going when there's money coming in for that album and there's a new one coming and they want that one, so they pay for the previous, it kept things vital. And then the brakes hit. Independent record stores started to collapse, and we started seeing massive returns, and it took the wind out of our sails, and we said, that's it, we're done, we're out of reach. A semi pulled up with $95,000 worth of CD returns one day. And we said, no, that's it, we're done. We're not going to keep doing this because this doesn't make sense. And that was really, the independent record stores collapsed at that point. That was the end of that.
But during that time, you did put out the Sponge Tones' Oh Yeah, which is still one of my favorite albums ever.
That's a great record. One of my favorites, too, was Fun with Atoms, Northern Distortion. That was a great record. Oh, geez, who else? A friend of mine had a project called Day One.
Okay.
His name was Leroy Busheri. We did a couple of albums under that name. Yeah, The Critics, 92 Degrees. And that's what was happening, was people were sending us things, and we were discovering these great releases.
Shoes has been around for over 40 years. To what do you attribute the longevity?
I think the friendship.
Okay.
I think, that's the thing, is we're friends first. And with any relationship, my God, it's like a marriage. How many people, been married for 40 years?
Right. Plus, you and John also are related.
Right, being brothers. And that can work against you, as in the Kinks.
Yeah, or Oasis, or any other number of brother bands.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult dynamic, but I think with John and I, there's a certain bond that we have, partly because when we were young, our father deserted us. Mm. And I think that really bonds you together because, you're all each other's got.
Right.
One of your parents is suddenly just gone. So we were raised during that period by a single mother, and you don't want to rock the boat. You go through periods of fighting like any brothers do. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, there's still probably nobody in life that can identify with what I've been through as a whole than my brother, because he experienced all that formative stuff at the same time I did. And even from a band standpoint, the history that we've got together, you still go through periods of close interaction and distance, but yet when we get together, you're still making fun of, each other in the same way that you did when you were 10 years old flicking burgers at each other. There's just a bond there that doesn't go away. And with Gary, again, we know each other so well. We know where all the skeletons are. We know the buttons to push to piss each other off. But that's not what it's about when you have this much time together. Now it's about enjoying and appreciating what each one brings to the table, as opposed to maybe, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, the competition was different between us because of the fact that you really felt, shit, I better write something really good or really great. Now you're more accepting of someone else's involvement in your own material because the fact that you appreciate, you realize that they have a unique perspective on it that you don't have, and yet it's close enough to your own instincts and vision that they're not going to do anything to piss you off. They're not doing it intentionally to piss you off. They're doing it to help what they think adds to it. And you tend to appreciate that now that, we've been together for so long. You really respect each other more. So I hope there's more recording. I hope we do more. Again, it's all based on circumstances. It just kind of happens. Mm-hmm. And if something triggers it, then there'll be more. Part of it is time.
Right.
Everybody's schedule is so different and their family commitments are so different that get drawn into life. But we all still enjoy it, there's no doubt.
And that's all the time we have for our Shoes special. I'd like to thank Jeff for being so candid and generous with his time, and encourage anyone who enjoyed this episode to check out shoeswire.com, where you can buy more Shoes music and get the latest updates from the band. Thanks for listening, and be sure to tune in again next week, when our topic will be down. This is Charlie, signing off.